Hey guys, so it is very late into the month. It is currently Monday, May 8th, and I've already completed 2 of the 3 books I need to for Reel of D20, and I haven't even started this vlog because truthfully, I've not been like feeling super great the last handful of days to where like I wanted to sit down and actually film something. Anyway, I want to talk about the 2 books I've read so far. So the first one I read was my first Reel of D20 book, which was Angelfall by Susan E. This is the first book in a trilogy by Susan E, basically around the time when a lot of the paranormal and dystopian kind of books were really getting big on BookTube back in like the mid 2010s-ish. This one I believe came out in 2012, and basically this is a dystopian involving angels having come to Earth, and basically like an apocalypse of some form happens where basically the angels are killing a ton of people, and there's some good, some bad, mostly bad, but you'll learn that there's a lot of nuance in terms of the angels themselves, and you're following the main character whose name is Penryn. I remember because it was a very different kind of name. But you're following Penryn, who's about 16, 17 years old, and she basically is on the hunt for her younger sister. Now, her sister is a wheel-bound little girl. She's only like 7 years old, and Paige, her sister, ends up getting taken away by some angels that they accidentally run into, that they fight, and Penryn's mother is basically like out of the picture. Like, she has extreme like mental health issues to where like she keeps hearing things, hearing demons. They talk about how it's almost like a paranoid schizophrenia kind of thing. And Paige was in a really bad accident when she was younger, which has left her wheelchair bound. Their father is no longer around. He had ditched them at some point and is very likely dead. But Penryn ends up kidnapping one of these angels named Rafi and basically enlists him to help her find her sister in exchange for getting him passage to this place where she likely is, so that he can obtain a new set of wings because his wings were cut off. He is basically considered an outcast among the angels. There's a lot of like, again, nuance to the angels themselves that Rafi really showcases in terms of just how awful they can be even to their own kind. And this very much is like the biblical idea of angels, of like being from God and being avenging, and you hear mention of Michael and Gabriel and various other archangels that many people will be familiar with if you are in any way familiar with the Christian idea of the angels. So this is a really interesting story. I really liked this a lot. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like this definitely was a little lackluster in some points. Like, I love the main idea of it, basically in a world where like not only is it dystopian, but it's dystopian because of an actual biblical apocalypse that kind of like takes place. And I did really appreciate the way that the story had developed over the pace of this one in particular, where it didn't end in the way I was really expecting it to, with like kind of a happily ever after. There's really no happily ever after to this, and there's some really devastating things that happen that I think are going to have some major repercussions in the second book. And I was really hesitant to read this for a long time because I have this book physically in the first part of it, and then I have the other 2 on my Kindle, and I was really scared that if I didn't like this, I wasn't going to end up picking up the Kindle versions and kind of have wasted the money, if you will, for them. But I really like this a lot. I just feel like that there was a lot of time that I just felt like I didn't really catch what was going on. I felt like it just was really boring in some places. But ultimately, the way that it got me was the fact that the story of Penryn and her being very apparently like a strong character from the beginning, and really coming to terms with the fact that she can only do so much as an individual, and she can't be expected to save everyone. And unfortunately for her, that becomes a very, very harsh reality many times over. So really liked this a lot. Rafi is a character that I'm kind of like hit or miss on. I feel like he's not necessarily the best like male character that I've come across in a YA novel. He's not the worst though. He's kind of just like meh. Like, I really don't see what exactly Penryn sees in him, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that he's super cute and he's a freaking angel, you know? That's very likely the case. I just don't get it as of yet. But 4 to 5 stars, really did like this. And then really this next one I have already read. This is the second time I've read it now, so there's really not much for me to say on it because I've read it now twice, and that is Haikyu Volume 1 by Haruichi Furudate. This is the first volume in a manga series that is all about volleyball, and specifically high school volleyball, which I remember one of my first Wheel of D20 Reads vlogs, I actually read this in that for the first time, and all of my thoughts basically are the same since that video. I love this. This was so much fun to fly through once again. The next one I'll be reading is The School for Good and Evil by Soman Chanani, something like that. I don't quite know how to pronounce their last name, but this is another series I heard a lot of people talking about, especially when the movie came out. Or movie or TV show, one of the two, I don't quite remember, but I feel like I'm going to like this, but I'm also a little scared to read this one because of just some of the things I heard about from the movie itself, or the show, or whatever the heck it was made out of it, where there was a lot of really ist things, like anti-Semitist, racist kinds of things, which I don't know whether or not they are in any way founded in actual fact or actual like evidence. But I do remember when School for Good and Evil had first come out as like a adaptation, it was not very well received by a lot of people. So I'm really hesitant to get into this one because I just don't know how I'm going to feel about it. I'm a little worried that it's going to turn out very much into kind of what HP has been for a lot of people. But I guess we'll see what we do from there. But to basically go over the prompts for the Wheel of D20, like I said, I've completed 2 of the 3 for the month of May. Angelfall was for the prompt of reading a book with blue on the cover, and Haikyu Volume 1 was completing the prompt of a book with white on the cover. Now, School for Good and Evil is for my hated trope prompt, which this one I hate. The reason I picked this one for a hated trope prompt was because I really hate the idea of a book where there's this idea of white being good, black being evil in some capacity, and I don't even necessarily know if that is the case in this. I don't know if this is the series where like that's switched, because I think that there is a series at some point where those colors are switched in terms of which one's good and which one's evil. But regardless, I hate the idea of black being evil and white being good, because that obviously has some really racist connotations. If you don't know anything about the difference between what is considered white magic versus black magic, there's a lot of racist history rooted in that, and I encourage you to do your research on it, because it is not necessarily my place to indicate to you what is racist and what is not. I just understand that the conversation about what is white magic versus black magic is definitely rooted in some racist history involving hoodoo and voodoo and how that is considered bad magic, which, if you know anything about hoodoo and voodoo, there's a reason why they call that black magic. Again, racist connotations. So definitely do your own research in terms of that. But that's why I placed this for the hated trope prompt, because I have a feeling that this is the case where that's kind of brought up. But I also could be wrong, where this could be also the series where those things are switched over, where black is actually good and white is bad. And I don't know whether that's the case or not, but I don't know why my camera keeps coming out of focus. It keeps wanting to pick up stuff that's back here, I think, instead of me right in the front. So, hi, camera, I'm here. This is me. This is what you're supposed to be focusing on right here. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get back to doing some reading. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys when I've actually gotten started with School for Good and Evil. Hi, it's been a minute. So, I really struggled this month with my reading. I talked a little bit about this in my N.K. Jemisin reading vlog, but yeah, it's been a hot minute. So I am currently over halfway done with my final book for the Wheel of D20, which is School for Good and Evil by Soman Chanani. It is currently May 30th. I have still like less than 2 days to finish this, but I'm fairly close to being done with it. Like, I only have a couple hours left of the audiobook. Yeah, I have less than 3 hours. So could I finish it tonight? Very likely. But I can kind of give you an idea of what my thoughts are on it as of now. So this is basically a middle grade, I would even say verging on young adult kind of story, because there's some things that are talked about in here and discussed with the main characters that make me feel like that they're supposed to be set older, but for some reason this was more maybe meant for middle grade. But basically this follows two young girls who are from the same town, that basically were from a town where they were obsessed with fairy tales, and there was this theory that every few years there would be two people that would be taken to supposedly a school that hosted both good and evil people. And so they believed that one person would be slated for good, one person would be slated for evil, and these people would never be seen again, but they always would get fairy tales or stories that kind of would be emulating the children that had been sent away, had been kidnapped in some way. Now, we follow two main characters. We follow Sophie, who is a character who is really trying to be good, but she's doing it for a lot of very vain reasons. And we have Agatha, who Agatha is thought to be kind of the more evil character because she's very brooding, she's very no-nonsense, she's very blunt, and not a lot of people in town like her. She's kind of just thought of as other, very much, you know, the Glinda versus the Wicked Witch of the West from Wicked, if you will. It's very much that vibe. That is a big inspiration, I think, in this book, is the idea of Glinda versus the Wicked Witch that is in the story of Wicked itself, not necessarily like Wizard of Oz, but same idea. So basically what happens is that Sophie and Agatha are very abruptly whisked away to the School of Good and Evil, and instead of being in the schools that they think they're going to be placed into, they actually get switched over, where Agatha is in the school for good and Sophie is in the school for evil. And so obviously, for one, they're really confused on why that is. They don't feel like that they fit with the ascribed personalities of the people that are in those schools. And on top of that, Agatha has always been someone that has been wanting to, like, you know, really focus on what's real, and she doesn't believe in fairy tales. And then when she's thrown into the situation, all she wants to do is get back home and get back to safety and live an ordinary life. Whereas Sophie is not so much of that mind. She has been wanting to go to the School for Good and Evil for years and has made it her mission to put herself where she wants to be. And then when she's thrown into the School of Evil, it really changes the way that she views herself, and she really has to question a lot about herself and why she's been placed there, because supposedly the school doesn't make any mistakes. Now, it's very clear from the moment that that happens that you start seeing the reasons why both of these characters were placed in these areas. In particular, Sophie, you really see Sophie from the very beginning, even before entering the school, that she is not doing things for good intended purposes. She is doing things to get what she wants, which in some ways I think is evil. She does a lot of things that are very vain and very much selfish, whereas Agatha, you don't really see why she's been placed in the school for good, but you also don't understand why people would think she'd be placed in the school for evil as well, because she's basically been made to be an outcast, which is fine, but at the end of the day, there is no real reason for her to even be at the school at all. Like, there's no reason other than the fact that she's supposed to be kind of the counterpoint to Sophie herself, which I believe was the point. You wanted to have two characters where they would be the opposites, similar to, like, in Wicked, you had Glinda versus Elphaba. So it's very much got that kind of a vibe where it seems like this is a story where you're going to see the cracks between these characters and their friendship, and what's going to basically propel the other books in the series, where it's going to be a lot of challenging this idea of what is very much good and what is very much evil, and what are the connotations of that, what really determines somebody being good or evil, you know, that kind of a thing. And there is kind of this looming idea that there is something between these two girls in particular that is going to be the ruination of them both. And I have a very distinct feeling I know what that is. I will say I think that in some ways this can be seen as a predictable story, but so far I'm really enjoying it. I really like the writing style of this. The very beginning I was enthralled immediately just based on the writing style. I am excited to be able to watch the movie, because I know that Netflix had come out with an adaptation of this that I think had gone over fairly well with a lot of the readers that really enjoyed the book, but I also understand that there were some things about it that kind of rubbed people the wrong way. I think in particular the way in which the character of witches was portrayed in this, where they're very much evil, very much ugly, relying on Jewish stereotypes of some kind. I think that was this movie. I could be wrong. It could have been a different movie or show that was exemplifying that, and I could be getting it mixed up. But I just remember when it first came out on Netflix, TikTok had gone ape shit about it. Both people that really loved it and people that disdained it for some of the messages that it was condoning throughout, based on various different things about what is evil and what the evil characters are like. Also, I just want to say, Tedros, absolute garbage. Garbage little boy. I think that he doesn't deserve anybody. He deserves to just be alone for the rest of his life. That's all I'll say. I don't like him. I don't like him one bit. Yeah. So, anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check back in a couple hours when I finish the book. I am thinking it's going to be somewhere between a 4 and a 5 star, because I really enjoy it. It is very fun to read. It's very fast to get through, and for that middle grade kind of YA borderline kind of story, it is actually a lot more enjoyable instead of tedious, because I thought for a while that this was going to be a very tedious story, and it's not, and I'm really liking that. So it's my final Wheel of D20 read for the month. I still am getting it done by the end of the month, which is good. The goal was to at least start it before I started doing my June TBR, which I just finished filming here. And I'm, like I said, over halfway through it by the time I had started that video, so I'm feeling good. And I only have like less than 3 hours left of it. I can finish it tonight if I really set my mind to it, in between doing some editing of videos and stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically it for right now. I'll check back in with you guys, like I said, when I finish The School for Good and Evil and give my final thoughts and close out the video. Hey guys, I'm gonna try to be as quiet as I can because my husband is sleeping in the bedroom and I don't want to disturb him too much, and I don't want to alert my dogs, so I'm gonna try to be a little bit quiet. But I just wanted to end this vlog here because I did finish School for Good and Evil by Soman Chanani, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. This was so good. I feel like this book really exemplified this idea that I was hoping for, where it talks about how not every single person that is considered evil is truly fully evil, and or at the very least, like, people can be misconstrued. Basically, judgment of people is really wrong, and quite honestly, the people that you think are the nicest sometimes aren't, and sometimes like our perceptions of people can be really misguided, and I just really enjoyed that. I feel that this had, like I said, a very wicked feeling with it, with the fact of the two characters being very much like Glinda and Elphaba, but being something very much different on its own. And I just really liked the way it was written. I really liked the way that the girls were developed over the course of this. Like, you really started to see the steady downward slope of one of the characters, and it ultimately like coming together where it was like a really kind of bombastic ending, if you will. But yeah, I really like this. I would like to be able to read at least the other 2 books in the main series, and I know that there is like some kind of a spin-off with 2 other books, I think, at this point. But I really liked it. I'd like to see where the rest of this goes, because I know that there's still something like to be said about this. I was a little shocked at some of the content that was involved in this, though. I feel like this is definitely verging more so on young adult than middle grade, just based on the sheer length alone. It was almost 500 pages, and I think that for most middle grades that is not the case. I think that a lot of times the middle grades are anywhere between 300 to 400, 450 at the max, and this, I think, just more so in terms of content, definitely was playing more toward the young adult side. And now Oscar has decided he wants to join in because he probably can hear me. But anyway, I wanted to just quickly let you guys know that I did finish this, and I did complete the Wheel of D20, and I actually finished it last night on May 30th, and it is currently about 8:45 at night on May 31st. So I made it, and by the time this video it goes out, the TBR for June will already be out, which I had already been like 75% of the way through, School for Good and Evil by the time I went to film that, so it still counted and everything. So I'm pretty excited. I am down to 2 reads in the month of June, and I am hoping that they're going to be good, because there are a couple things that I wasn't expecting to necessarily pick up this round, or at the very least one of them wasn't necessarily like something I was already thinking about picking up in any way. Anyway, hope you guys are doing okay. Hope you guys are doing well. But thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you'd like to be and would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlette in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys.